Good evening, Star. Welcome to the longest titled mission in the history of Star. Thanks to these. Rainbow Six Siege when reality hot breaches into science fiction. It was so long I had to change it to fit in the Facebook event. So quick opening announcement before we get things started. Membership, not a whole lot of semester left, but there's still plenty you can do with it. $6 for the next few weeks. It gets you the ability to vote in the upcoming election next week, run in the upcoming election next week, and get a discount on any Star merch, including, and let us buy your tickets for the upcoming Avengers Infinity War mission, which is going to be April 27th. We also have sodas. They're up there. I think we still have Pepsi and Sprite. So buy one of those. They're $1 a piece. All proceeds go to the IDPF. So in honor of Carrie Fisher. Talk to Tulio if you want to buy anything. Coming up this week is going to be Spring Fest. So that's CAB's big festival they do every year. Because of the weather, they have moved the movie showing for The Last Jedi inside to the Davis Room, which is where we are going to be doing lightsaber duels. Not me, but those nerds will be. And last thing before we turn things over, there was a phone charger that was left behind in Artemis at Toricon. So if you lost the phone charger at Toricon, went to Artemis, if you lost it there, talk to Cameron Rava and we'll see if it's yours. So I'd like to bring Ava up here to talk about nominations for the next bridge crew.
Thank you, John. Okay, so it is almost the end of the year and we need an e-board for next year. Can you turn off the projector because I need the board? Thank you. That's all.
I don't know. Okay.
Okay. So we have 5 e-board positions to fill. I'm going to write them on the board. They are captain, which is my job. I am in charge of the club. There is first officer, which is vice president. That is Cameron's job. He assists me in running the club. He also does our room reservations. We also have an ops officer. That's Tulio. That is the treasurer. He handles all of our money exchange, and as Star, we run some big events and conventions, so we buy a lot of things, and it's important to keep your stuff in order. We also have a comms officer, and that is John. The comms officer manages all of our public relations and also acts as secretary. It is a big job, and it's a really big job because he's who talks to you through the emails and through Facebook and all of that. And we have our chief engineer, who is Claire. She is the techie. She manages all of our physical stuff, like all of this here and the bridge, and also all of our online things, such as our infrastructure of our Google Drive stuff, and where our personal website, and where we take notes and have meetings. We have all of that information online, so we can look back at it later. Today we are going to take nominations for all of the bridge crew positions. Claire, could you write the positions across the board so that we can do that? In order to be nominated for a bridge crew position, in order to nominate someone, you do have to be an RIT student. You do have to be a member of STAR. And in order to run, again, you have to be an RIT student, a member of STAR, and someone who is going to be here next year. If you are going on co-op, you are still allowed to run, but it is preferable that you be in the area. My past 2 years on bridge crew, I've also been on co-op, but I was co-oping in Rochester, so I was still in the area and still on bridge crew. If you have any questions, please ask them now, but I would like to open up the floor for nominations. Any questions for stuff? Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yep. Can you sign me first? Thank you. But also, everyone is up for, every position is up for nominations. We re-elect our entire e-board every year. And if you are interested in running, you can also nominate yourself, but please remember that it is a very demanding thing to be on Star eBoard. It's very demanding, but it's very rewarding, and please take it seriously. Yes, Cameron?
So if you are nominated, you can either accept or deny that nomination. And you can nominate people that are in the room, and we will contact them and let them know that they are nominated.
Yeah, you also have a week to sit on it. Elections are next week. If you decide that you're interested today, but then decide in a few days that it's not something that you would like, that is totally fine. We are not going to force anyone to run, because that's not ideal. Also, if you decide that you are interested in nominating someone or running and you think of it after this mission, that is also fine. You can message any of the current e-board and we will put them on the ballot if they say yes, if they are interested in running. All right, are there any other questions? Wonderful. I'd like to open up the floor for nominations. Yes, Cameron?
I would like to nominate Eva for captain. I would like to nominate John for first officer. And I would like to nominate Aaron for both first officer and officer.
What was the other one?
For comms as well.
Just comms?
Yeah, and comms.
All right. Thank you, Cameron. All right. I would like to nominate Cameron for captain.
Second.
Or
Yes, John.
I would like to nominate Nick Foster as ops.
Nick, are you all right with that?
unfortunately, we're not going to call it that.
All right. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other nominations? Yes, John?
I would like to nominate Logan King for energy.
Awesome. I would like to nominate Julio for ops. Seconded. What? Do we have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Deborah for ops.
She's here? No. I will message her. I'll message her. Can you star both Deborah and Hammer since they have not accepted? Okay. Cameron, can you do an @channel for general and say that we are accepting nominations? And we will continue to do that through tonight's mission and through the next few days if you think of anyone or if you end up being interested.
Really, I have to next Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Are there any other nominations for tonight? Wonderful. I'm going to take a picture of this real quick. I'm going to forget. I mean, the purpose is I am going to forget, and that's why I'm taking the picture. Good. All right. Remember to. All right, remember after this mission, you also get to pie the current bridge crew. We have all of the pie materials if you brought your own pie, as long as it isn't like a nut pie or just something bad. It can't be frozen either. That happened in the past. That happened. But yeah, pieing the bridge crew is after this mission, so stick around. We will arrange that. We'll go outside. We have pie tins and shaving cream. It'll be fun. And
before we throw both things over to our mission runner, one thing I forgot to bring up, we have a bylaw that we are going to, that is being put up for consideration. Bridge Crew's been talking about this over the last couple weeks, and it is now time to put it up to you guys. So we are going to do an app channel in the Slack in general, and it'll be included in the email as well. Basically, all of you guys are going to have the opportunity to comment any changes that you think are necessary, and then we will review the bylaw, and accept your comments or decline them as they are necessary. And it'll be up for vote along with the Bridge Crew elections on the ballot next week. So, without further ado, I would like to pass this over to our 3 meme lords for their mentions.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong, but I can still resent it.
You're gonna leave me here alone?
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, man. They're not made to order, Cameron. Just one copy of the collection. That's the Hey. Oh, welcome to Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah. We are your presenters. It's your boy Noah. It's your other boy Cameron. And also Alex.
In their weird circle of love Jaeger pilots. It's fine.
But that's besides the point. So we're here to talk to you today about 2 things primarily. Number 1, Rainbow Six Siege. Number 2, a subcategory of science fiction that we call light science fiction. But first of all, for anyone who's unfamiliar, Rainbow Six Siege has become one of the most popular shooters on the market. It just reached 30 million players recently. It's had a steady uptick in player base since release. So it's a very strong game, and now is a great time to get into it if you are unfamiliar. It sort of is unique amongst first-person shooters because it has very fast time to kill and no respawns. And this leads to a lot of high-tension moments because you can potentially die at any given moment. So there's always that sort of stress and tension of a great match. There are currently 39 unique operators in the game, each with their own unique gadget that change their playstyle just a little bit and influence the map and other operators in unique and interesting ways. They're composed of 14 real-world counter-terrorist units, things like the Spetsnaz, FBI, Navy SEALs, the GIGN, the SAS, and many more. It has an asymmetrical game design to it because certain operators can only be selected on attack and certain operators can only be selected on defense. So it's constantly rotating who you play as on either side, and you really need to adjust gameplay styles for the operator that you have selected and the map location and whether you are attacking or defending. And a lot of the really cool gadgets that these operators have, some of them absolutely exist in our world, some of them almost exist in our world, and some of them are just a little bit far-fetched. But we're going to be getting into those, and they're all inspired by real-world military technology.
So, what is light science?
You have it plugged in.
Oh my god.
You don't have the USB.
I was handed this and I didn't. Okay, cool. So you said light science fiction is a concept that in a lot of media operators, technology that is very close to what we have today, or actually what we have today. And so it's something where in the medium, it's science fiction isn't the purpose. Focuses on like story, the gameplay, like focus isn't on science fiction. But the important thing is that it seems like it could be real. It could be real in 10 years, and it just uses technology inspired by what we have today. Yeah. Although two notable examples like the secret bracelet will probably never come into fruition. I don't know if you know this, but Capital Solution has a small series on YouTube. Where he debunks a bunch of fake video editing and other things. And he did a debunk of this and the fact that you can't get such a clear screen like that on the wrist.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing about light science fiction is that even if it doesn't exist or couldn't exist, it's almost believable that it could happen.
So particularly in here, we have like Quinjet from the Avengers. So, it's got like the VTOL technology, like the Ospreys that we have today. But it's, a little bit more, it's just another step further. And while it might not be possible, it's like, yeah, that makes sense, I guess. So yeah, we're gonna dive a little bit more into that. Let's move through. Oh yeah. Okay.
The issues with LED projectors are really a matter of life science fiction.
Well, interesting that you would say that. Here's some examples. Right. So one of the examples we have is the Martian, where it's the premise is basically some astronaut gets trapped on Mars 30 years in the future. And what's interesting about this is that all their technology is very similar to what we have today, right? And it would actually be used if we decide to go to Mars. So, for example, the spacesuit, the generator gas, it's called the RTG, it's the radioisotope thermal generator. Like plutonium encased in a radiation protected tube that provides heat. So that's the thing that's been used in space. The ship that used to get to Mars uses ion propulsion, which is something that NASA uses all the time when it's in their government spacecraft. And then just everything you put the body into and the habitat. Very similar to that. Yeah, and then one of the things is that this is like science fiction because a lot of the focus isn't on how they get to Mars and some of the technology that doesn't exist. Ultimately, it is a story about survival using a lot of science that does exist today. So the science fiction provides a nice backdrop for the Martian, and it makes the story a lot more interesting. But the focus is not on the science fiction; it's on survival. Yes, at least for the movie. Exactly.
Not how he got there.
Yeah.
I think that he states that he is the first space pirate king of Mars. So let's talk about person of interest. Person of interest uses artificial intelligence as a backdrop to a procedural cop show. The larger arcs do delve into the artificial intelligence, but just as a factor of either helping or stopping crime. The idea of person of interest is that somebody builds an AI that can predict humans, because whenever humans are planning to do something, they're very, very obvious. But the downsides of the systems are you can't tell whether they're a victim or the one that's planning to do the crime. So what usually ends up happening is, case of the week where the protagonist has to figure out who exactly is doing what and whether they're being hurt or if they're hurting someone. It's the AI takes sort of a backdrop to more of the encroaching military complex on American society and how it's using technology to sort of not only predict but also manipulate people into certain systems. By the end of the show, there is quite literally a system in place that marks certain individuals as deviants and usually either tests them for re-education or for elimination.
And then again, the focus, while this AI provides a backdrop that makes the show possible, at least in the beginning, the focus of the show is really more on a serial crime of the week sort of drama. So again, light science fiction means that the science fiction is a backdrop for something else that really takes center stage. So next is Metal Gear, particularly in the early games. It gets a little bit crazy when you go a little bit further down the road, but particularly in the first Metal Gear Solid, whenever there's any sort of crazy science fiction things like stealth technology or bipedal walking tanks or chemical biological warfare, it's made a huge deal of. There's a lot of build up to it, and everyone is shocked that this exists now. But that provides a backdrop for the actual gameplay, which involves sneaking around. And while you do use some of this science fiction technology to make things easier, like the Soliton radar, which you can use to see where enemies are looking and whatnot, the core gameplay involves hiding around corners, shooting people with just regular guns that exist today. And then once again, the science fiction is not the focus. It as a backdrop that makes this sort of thing possible and more interesting.
I did notice when we were making this that Solid Snake is jacked.
Yeah. Oh,
look at all those pixels for abs.
In the original Metal Gear Solid, there is more detail resolution in their abs than their faces. This is true. On the back.
I don't know if you're talking about this, but on the subject of Metal Gear, so I want to
It's also very very similar to the early games of County.
Yeah. Cool.
In fact, play.
Yeah, yeah, it's a backdrop for the, yeah.
And another example would be Mad Max, where basically the premise is it's in the future, it's post-apocalyptic, but they have cool cars that they drive around and humans everywhere. So like they actually built those cars. Those are actual cars that were made. They weren't CGI. So like the focus is on the action story, but it's definitely set in the science.
Science fiction is more or less like out there with like nuclear wars, but it's definitely not the focus within the society and the culture that ends up coming out of that apocalypse. Yeah.
That makes the apocalypse is supposed to be something like all the oceans literally start to just evaporate, and diseases start to appear out of nowhere, and then everyone just started to like hunker down because the apocalypse was coming, and like everyone sort of saw it coming, and then like all the ice in the world was flattened, and now like the deserts are basically in the ocean floors. So another series that actually falls into this one, but might not be here. Has anyone ever heard of the movie or book, What is Star?
Oh god.
Original? Yes.
Oh boy. We ran that in book club.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How was it?
It was an experience.
It
was very, very dark.
Very dark. All out, and every other show, every series, also conquer and celebrating culture and survive the apocalypse inside of it. Interesting enough, after World War IV, which only lasted 6 hours, oh yeah, we're getting that far. How many wars? Pretty much, got all of that, like rifles, stuff like that. It's very similar to this, a lot less.
Well, I'm pretty sure the original version of Fallout, I think they cited it for one of the but like in every game you find a problem and you come from a wall. It's very much the same story. I don't think Warning Dog is. It might be future. I'm not.
Yeah,
Fallout definitely takes more of the future.
Wayne's Dog was future when it came out, kind of predicting apocalypse from their Fallout. And what's I would not recommend reading it if you have a weak stomach for graphic scenes, as things are described in a lot of detail. And so, unless you like yourself some good apocalypse stories, I would not recommend it.
I mean, if you want to watch the movie, it's a lot more tame, but still shows you degradation of human.
All right, moving on.
All right, so the final example we have is Moon-Based Alpha, and it's about simulation of life on the moon and the teamwork that it takes to accomplish various tasks. But you might be thinking to yourself, wow, how is this? This is super high, science fiction. A lot of things they involve with, definitely don't exist yet. It's, I would argue, a little bit more science fiction than even The Martian. But as anyone who's familiar with it, is that the whole moon sort of thing is really more of a backdrop to the memes. John Madden, John Madden, John Madden. Yes. Oh, you hit the cord. All right, so we are moving into specifically to the Rainbow Six Siege and how it itself is like science fiction. So we have a small smattering of gadgets here on the page. And a lot of these gadgets absolutely exist in our world and are not science fiction at all, such as a hammer or a crossbow. And a couple more of the gadgets are a little bit much further into the realm of science fiction, such as a miniaturized EMP grenade. But again, like I mentioned before, these gadgets merely change gameplay slightly throughout the course of the game. No matter what operator you're playing, although their gadget does impact the way you play, your primary gameplay experience is mostly on shooting guns and breaching walls. So again, these gadgets just provide a backdrop that makes up gameplay and make things more interesting, but the primary focus of the game is very much seated in reality, and that's why it calls itself a tactical, realistic shooter too.
makes that projectiles like midair as they're firing forward.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation.
So, in terms of operators, I guess we're going to start off with like the most realistic of operators, starting off with some of the real life influences behind everybody's favorite operator, Sledge. And yeah,
So the setting for this was in 1980. The Iranian embassy in England was taken over. Yeah. So and the SAS had to come in and retake the embassy. So this is a real life event that actually happened, and he played Nation of the Boat.
Ran forward and all said, screw the explosives. I'm using the sledgehammer. They were shut down.
But yeah, basically that's the fact that we all what happened. Turn up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah. And for anyone who didn't hear, he said, my buddy Bob said, screw the explosives, I'm using the sledgehammer. And then he just uses the sledgehammer.
It's taking too long to lay the explosives on the door. Oswald's team could lose surprise. My partner, Bob, and I ran forward, and Bob said, screw the explosives. I'm using the sledgehammer. So she took the back door out of the sledgehammer, and we went over the explosives and into the back door.
Yeah, so this was the Iranian embassy siege, and it definitely shows that they really like that idea, especially in Sledge's operator video.
Sledge's whole gimmick is that he uses a sledgehammer to break down walls. Screw the explosives. He's using the sledgehammer.
That's right, he is. He's an English operator. In homage to, what was his name? Right? Bob Curry. Yeah, he's still part of the SAS.
Yeah.
So wait, I've got a quick question. Does that make this guy the unofficial Bob the Unbuilder?
Very nice, very nice, very nice.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Thank you. We can take a lot of examples in Siege of actual weapons used in combat. For example, Sledge's shotgun attachment is actually used in what shotgun? Buck shotgun. The skeleton key was actually used in the Afghanistan War of 2003 by American troops on the field and attempt to breach through doors and some soft walls.
Yeah. So
if you didn't know about shotguns and the breach history, usually they're used to make sure to take out the hinges on the door and just blow it out of the way.
So yeah, what specifically he's talking about, as you can see up there in the top left, that is a rifle, and there's another gun on the bottom. That's a shotgun. So you got two guns in one gun, and the way the operator works is you press the gadget button, and he basically moves his hand forward, and you can very quickly switch between the shotgun and the main gun, and it's great at opening walls and ceilings.
For my group, knowledge of like military and gunnery. So I think the main idea of using the underground mass casting was to limit the amount of soldiers you could carry. But before this, they just had a shotgun on the back that concentrated shotguns on and like 5 pounds to turn around. So this allows them to just fuck it on with the original.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's still used today.
Yeah, it's super realistic.
So a note about Sledge's hammer. It's not a conventional sledgehammer, most notably because it has a crowbar on the back end of it. I'm not sure what he uses it for, but I guess it's for prying doors apart. And finally, for us, just has a bear trap. That's just a bear trap. You put your foot in it, it grabs your leg, and you're down further around for a bit. And if you didn't know, it actually has been used in warfare before in Vietnam, notably by the Viet Cong.
They made like their own rudimentary bear traps that they would bury, and the idea is that they would cover them with some foliage, and the American soldiers would step on them and get caught in the bear trap.
Yep. And would probably be out of service for several weeks as their legs recovered from getting stabbed.
Yeah, and they would coat the tops with like poison and other hazardous chemicals so that they would have to get evacuated from the war, otherwise risk dying of infection.
Yeah, Frost's trap is kind of like a bear trap light. It doesn't really have any serrated edges or anything else lethal. It's just imagine 2 bars of steel coming together to slam your leg down. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's plenty of war crimes in this game. If we're being honest, there's someone who literally uses chemical weapons, which is very much not allowed.
So, but the premise of definitely, we're still alive and not moving around, but all we can do is crawl around. We can't do anything.
But the only thing you can't do when you get frost matted though is you can't move.
Yeah.
But you are also automatically in hold to not bleed out, which is nice.
So all these gadgets technically look like these are clearly not science fiction. So this is where the light comes in.
Yeah. So moving a little bit into the more odd and sort of gray area of like Montaigne and Castle, they use a lot of Kevlar, and Montaigne in particular mixes Kevlar with metal alloy onto his shield. And these are notably very lightweight and bulletproof ways to make sure you don't get shot. In fact, Castle's bio says that he was stuck in a barn in the middle of a botched FBI SWAT operation, and he just put up a bunch of blankets to cover up sightlines when he thought of the idea, maybe this should be made out of Kevlar. It would be much better. They're lightweight, they're bulletproof, and they can handle small arms fire, as is indicated in game by the fact that Glaz's sniper rifle, or DMR, can just shoot holes into this thing immediately, and he'll have a sightline onto you.
But no other weapon in the game can, which is a little bit pushes a little bit into the science fiction and sort of pushes game balance because these things are like some sort of concoction of Kevlar and other things. Because while Kevlar is bulletproof, it's bulletproof once. It is, you get shot and the Kevlar breaks and takes all the impact, and not your bones or your skin. But the castle barricade, if you have just a standard assault rifle, you can shoot bullets into it all day and it won't break.
Did you know that Kevlar is not stabbed? The fact that it's kind of like the shield in Dune, where if you just stab somebody, it'll just work.
And when you stab Montaigne, when he has his shield out, don't recoil and bring your shield back a little.
Yeah. Because, getting hit with bullets on a very large object that you're holding to stop them is kind of hard. We actually looked into how heavy ballistic shields typically are, and they range anywhere from like 16 to about 30 pounds. But considering that Montaigne's is made out of more than just Kevlar, and also probably, steel or some other alloy.
And it extends as well to cover almost his entire front body from a decent array of angles.
It could easily be somewhere in the 60-pound range, along with the fact. Yeah, he's a big boy. It's somewhere around the 60 pounds range, plus all the armor he wears, which is kind of like one of those Bond Squadron suits, which gives him easily another 30 pounds on top of himself. Meaning that he 50? Yeah, 110. So no. He gets somewhere around. He puts on somewhere around 110 pounds just to go out on the field, and I honestly can't blame him for only bringing a handgun in on any operation. That's Michael Cooper.
About this earlier, the sledge guy, can he use the sledgehammer against other opponents, and what happens if he uses it against that guy's shield?
Well, nothing. They're both attackers.
Against the Montaigne shield, nothing happens because they're on the same team. But against these castle barricades, which it will destroy them in one hit.
Yeah. So Sledge is very strong, apparently. It's very funny whenever it happens because it's like once in a blue moon.
The sound design is on point.
Yeah, especially because if he has the sledgehammer out, he can't run. So you just had this guy waddling around with a hammer trying to hit the enemy team. It's funny. The enemy got aircraft. So on the range of Kevlar and shields, the defenders have something called a deployable shield, which is a sort of 60-pound apparatus, which is just made out of metal that they bring up that goes about to knee height. Is that waist height? Waist height?
Yeah, super crash behind it.
Yeah. And this is like showcasing how technology advances in terms of
So the actual shield in the game is just made up of metal pieces that are kind of slid on top of each other, and so they plant on the ground and slide it up. And there's two components to it. We found this, which is a sort of origami Kevlar thing, which as you see, when you pull it out, is made up of a lot more pieces and not strictly metal, but it's surprisingly similar to the one that you see in game.
its current shifts and ask what can help them to better do their job.
Current products out there are about 90 pounds. That's pretty heavy for one person to carry, and it only protects one person. Our goal was to go for 50 pounds and protects 2 to 3 people.
This pattern is a Yoshimura crease pattern. And when it deploys, it provides these nice angles, which we hope to be even more effective shape for a barrier. So going from paper to other materials can be really challenging.
It has 12 layers of Kevlar with an aluminum core in the middle. The students did a lot of calculations, and 12 layers is really what you need to be able to withstand a bullet from a handgun. One of the great things about this particular fold pattern is that it opens and closes really easily. In an emergency situation, you've got to be able to just get that thing open and get it in the way.
Today's objective was to see if it worked, if it actually stops bullets.
My first thought was, did he miss? I went back to the high-speed camera and I'm filming, and the bullet sunk right in.
It is not. It was exciting to see that it did stop the bullets, and we were able to successfully demonstrate it with 9mm, 357 Magnum, and 44 Magnum pistols.
The federal agents that saw our initial prototype were really excited about it.
Their response was, this is a revolutionary product.
My dad is actually a police officer himself. This could be something that could be used by him or other officers that could prevent injury and save their lives.
So obviously for game balance purposes, the shields that you see in game block all arms fire from all weapons and are only destroyable by explosives. But this is a really, really similar product that I wouldn't be surprised if they drew inspiration from in order to see the shield that you have in game.
That's the little part of technology.
So let's move on into the werewolves. What? No. This is Pulse. He has a heartbeat sensor. It is quoted in game that his Pulse heartbeat sensor uses electric fields to try and locate heartbeats in the around him. As somebody who's been doing biosensor work for Bose for a senior design project, I can tell you that's not how it works. And also, there is far too much noise around this sensor to allow you to actually be able to detect a heartbeat on the field, especially when the bio itself quotes that this sensor can see through concrete. If you didn't know, concrete is one of the least waves cannot penetrate concrete very well. It is the most terrible material you can ask for when you're thinking of a transmission solution. If you go to the EM Fields lab here at RIT and ask them to do a demo for you, they will bring out a concrete slab for you and try to pass like just short, like one small EM wave from one side to the other of the table, plop the concrete right on it, and it will not pass. If you are going to actually use a sensor, a heartbeat sensor, what usually happens is you have to mount an infrared and a photodiode onto the patient, and then you'll be able to get their heartbeat. You can't really do this. With some tweaking, it could be possible, but it's just, from what I've seen of the research, it's largely unfeasible. Yes?
Well, how do we know that the terrorists aren't wearing these heartbeat monitors?
Well, I don't know. Did you give them Bluetooth heartbeat monitors?
So, Alex, you seem to know a lot about pulse and heartbeat technology. Why is that?
Well, Cameron, it's because I'm a pulse main myself.
Hit us with the comb.
No, this is how it is. Yes, we were missing the umlaut. Yep.
Yeah, we're getting more into the realm of still realistic, but totally, definitely science fiction.
They said it could not be done. They said it was designed for tanks. They said that I could not make it smaller and more accurate.
Welcome to Jaeger. So, Jaeger's active defense system actively tracks any projectile that tries to come into a room and effectively intercepts it by firing a bolt at it, taking it out of its trajectory and sometimes rendering it not dangerous at all to any operators. How it usually works in game is if the Jaeger device is in a room and within range, the projectile just gets zapped out of existence.
Like any throw projectile, so not bullets, things like grenades or flashbangs or Thatcher's EMP devices.
Ash's breach charges that like in the air.
Yeah. So anything that moves slower than a bullet, that's a projectile. This thing gets zapped right out of the air.
Charges for DS, and it's very useful for whenever you know that a site is assaulted with grenades very often. However, that's, as he said, they said it couldn't be done. Most systems you see nowadays are like the Israeli system, trophy system, which is more of a flat gun that just sees a missile and then shoots a wide array of pellets to try and intercept it before it arrives at a vehicle. It's frankly really hard to do the math on the fly on a computer to try and take out accurately any sort of thrown up projectile or fired from a rocket launcher, for example. Yes, John.
Does it have to drift with anyone to maintain their own road?
Yes, he has to drift the bandit.
So, kind of similar to this, and to prevent it just doesn't work, is in the 1980s, the US invested millions and millions of dollars in the Star Wars program, which is a system designed to shoot missiles out of space with other missiles, and it just never, ever works because the math simply dies too hard to do immediately.
Yeah.
You would trick someone into thinking that might work.
Yeah, but then you'd be complicit in murder.
Yeah. So this is a great example of technology that does exist, right? These trophy systems and taking out projectiles out of the air like exists, but on a very large scale. So they basically took that technology and they put it a step further and pushed it only a little bit into science fiction. Put on a wall.
I know, but like make it stable. Other than that, we also have drones. This is one of the attacker drones.
In our few spare hours, I'd love to share the details of how this device is a masterpiece of design. Critical independent gearboxes enabling 0 to 20 in under 4 seconds. 10 kilometers of internal wiring, 1,100 expertly machined and assembled components, flawless control out of 300 meters. But all my team needs to know is, does it do the job or doesn't it? And let me tell you right now, it does the job.
So I do have one issue with this video. She says 10 kilometers of wiring. That's way too much for how little space there is in it. Knowing PCB design.
There you go, light science fiction. It doesn't weigh a lot.
It doesn't weigh a lot.
Yeah, so it's light science fiction.
Oh my god. Also, 10 kilometers of copper wiring would be very, very heavy.
Well, she doesn't say copper.
Wiring. Wiring is usually made out of copper. Zachary? No, and do not try. She will tase you with her drone. You will be more likely to go down in the round if she does. Yes. You can't escape this drone. You literally can't. So the Twitch and Echo drones are the more specialized drones used by operators in the game. Twitch is an attacker. Echo is a defender. So as such, Twitch has a gadget that openly attacks not only the operators on the other team, but also the gadgets that they put down. Twitch is what you would call a counter to breach denial, and also to more apparent operators in the meta right now, like Mira. It can open up Mira's windows without her wanting to. and is usually disposable. Twitch starts off with 2 drones, 5 tasers, and it's very useful. As you know, it's in real life we've mounted a lot of tools onto drones, expecting them to be able to do a better job than we can. Meanwhile, on the flip side, we have Echo's drone. Echo's drone is a lot more defensive, and in order to stay within, I think, Geneva Convention rules and laws about robots, which I actually don't think we have in our world right now. I'm not sure. Not yet. He instead built a drone that blasts any operator with ultrasonic sound waves in order to concuss them and make them stop whatever they're doing at the moment. Most often, he is used to stop anybody from planting defusing a bomb by planting down the diffuser, which stops their actions completely. Also, this drone has a cloaking system which tends to flicker every now and then whenever it is placed on the roof, and it flies low to the ground in an attempt to stop getting seen by attackers.
So yeah, if you look closely, you can see there's these 4 holes on it. These are actually rotors. It can fly and like sort of hover at about ceiling level. And when it is hovered at ceiling level, it has a light cloak to it and like it's sort of invisibility. And this sort of thing does exist in our world. We've done it like not at such small a scale and not at such good a detail. But basically, what it is it would have a camera on top that records what is directly above it, and then a screen on the bottom that just projects that same image. So, when you look at it from different angles, you can sort of see that things don't quite line up, but it's easy to miss on a first pass. And this is replicated in game as well. You're just kind of glancing around, it's really easy to miss, but if you're looking for it, you can usually find it.
Yeah. Let me just show you what we did come up with in real life, which is an unholy abomination that mixes these 2 drones, which is this drone has a taser. These 2 prongs here, that's a taser gun. The idea is that cops would be able to use this to, instead of run down the suspect, they're just sitting there on their gamepad, just like driving this drone up to your house and tasing you if you try to run away.
So yeah, as you can see, you can't really see, but this drone here is significantly bigger than either of the drones that these operators are using. And once again, it falls into the area of the light science fiction because we have it, it's just big, and now it is small, and it works better.
Yeah. There is a video of this drone in action. It is actually quite terrifying. If you want to see it, go ahead. But it is mainly made for subduing any perpetrators. Yes, John.
So this drone, new technology being employed by Amazon on HTTP players on their classes.
Yes, it is. Yes, they ordered 5 class wins it.
Yeah, in fact, there's one coming for you right now. I recommend getting under the table.
So that's what the things are going down there. It's really going through. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Also, there was a teenager who took their drone that they bought from the store and they just added a gun to it and just added some algorithms to make it compensate for the recoil. So that's very deadly, and I am very afraid of DIYers now.
Yes. You should always be afraid of DIYers. You might accidentally use a water bomb.
So here's where we get more into the realm of actually science fiction. So Thatcher is an operator named after British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and his whole gimmick is that he has this EMP grenade that destroys electronics. So this is clearly unrealistic. He also hates laser sights. The grenade turns him off. He has 3, and what an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse, where it's just this very, very quick burst of EM radiation, where EM is just particles that move at the speed of light, so photons at different wavelengths. And the effects of an EMP in real life can vary greatly, like from just slightly disrupting functions of a system. Well, how it works real quick is it creates an electric field which disrupts things. That's as simple as I can put it. We can also get an EMP on the outskirts of a nuclear explosion, which will completely fry and destroy all electronics within it. And the Army has actually called for research on EMP grenades. I think they did that a few years ago. Yeah. So
they're trying really hard because it would be very useful now. combat stage.
The goal is to, if everyone had an EMP grenade, it would turn everyone into a bomb defusal unit. So they could just throw the grenade at an IED and it would destroy the detonator, and then the army could proceed and move forward. So to have one this small is completely unrealistic.
And to have one without a nuclear detonation is also completely unrealistic.
Oh yeah, this is one of the ones that breaks the Geneva Convention because it's most likely a nuclear device.
So what you're saying is it's unrealistic in science fiction, not because EMPs can't exist and it wouldn't, and that they would not have that effect, but because it'd be nearly impossible to break something so small that could generate an EMP like big enough to actually have that effect.
Yeah, like it's plausible to be able to, take a trophy system that can take out rockets and have it take out hand grenades. Like it's like, oh, okay, I see that. But like there's such a difference in scale between the EMPs that we have in the real world and Thatcher's little grenade, which has like a 15-meter radius or something like that.
Yeah, I mean today we just saw in the floors and we brought out this size capacitor, and that didn't even generate enough current in an electric field to fry electronics around it. Did you saw that, right?
It's massive. And then in the game, how this works is it takes out he's an attacker, so any defender electronics. So like the Jaeger ADS we saw before, or Bandit's batteries, which are just electrical batteries hooked up to a wall. It also temporarily disables laser sights.
Oh, and it also temporarily disables yokai, which is somewhat guarded against EMPs.
Echo's drone.
Yeah, but something else. Oh, and it doesn't take out frost mats because those aren't electronic.
Yeah. Well, but it does take out pulses.
Yeah, yes. It temporarily disables it.
Okay, well, I don't know too much about EMPs, but I do know that you can actually generate a self-managing EMP. It's just not recommended, nor is it.
You need like a wall. You need a consistent wall socket connection to try and do it, and also you need such high wattage equipment to actually charge up to do it.
Well,
unfeasible.
Going into some other fiction that actually has. If you're one of the movie Small Soldiers. Thank you. At the very end is when they two electrical like barrels that are touched out holes. They put a transformer. Yeah, not a transformer. They put it's just a piece of metal that connects the two transformers. With a huge power boost, but also eventually cause a miniaturized EMP. It actually does in fact provide electronic device within a frequency. It's what they do. I don't know if you actually do it in the life, but
I studied power electronics, and doing that would just short the two transformers, making them useless.
yes, also take out just the power for the entire neighborhood, so thanks again.
Yeah.
Yeah, even still, more than that, or any of your kids actually would be a part of the
Oh, no. The part that goes against the Geneva Convention is the fact that Thatcher's device might very likely be a nuclear core that generates that much power in such a small amount of time. That's what makes it illegal, not the part of turning off electronics.
It's easy to create an EM pulse. That's really easy. Just quickly create an electric field. It's really hard to make one that can take out electronics and disrupt anything or any electric or magnetic field.
Do you think that this is a medium?
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's very likely.
It glows. Like when you hold it, it's really glowy. So like, who knows?
I assume that was like
Only Thatcher knows.
Yeah.
What?
So,
probably not. Now, the one thing
So there's also this device. Havana is one of the Japanese operators, and she takes this and shoots little pellets that are explosive and stick to things. Not this guy, her. So they're electric, they stick to reinforced walls, and then they blow up the metal and they can breach through. So things like this have kind of appeared in real life. During World War II, the British developed these, which are explosives wrapped in glass, wrapped in something sticky, wrapped in metal, and they were supposed to be anti-tank. Like, you would pull off the metal, throw them at a tank, detonate and run away. They didn't really work. I think all in all, they took out 6 total tanks just in Africa. But her pellets are also not these, because these are unstable, but it's similar to C4 in that they only go off when she detonates them. And it's really slow and long, and then it blows up the metal. So it's it's explosive breaching, but it's kind of similar to thermal breaching, where explosive breaching is a term used by counterterrorism units where they get through a wall or something with explosives, and it's supposed to be fast and effective, but dangerous. And the thermal breaching is cutting through a wall. So I think Hibana's pellets are kind of a combination of the two. They burn their way through the metal.
It doesn't like a direct explosion with that middle part just punching through the metal.
Yeah, and I looked really hard, and I found there are rifle grenades, grenade launchers, but none of them will launch a stable explosive. They'll launch something that'll go off, and probably nothing this small that could destroy reinforced walls.
Yeah, the point of the Japanese operators update was to showcase technology in of itself and how it could be used to better warfare, especially with the yokai drone being such a passive drone, more just working to disrupt rather than to kill. And also this smart launcher, because if you actually look in game, when you try to shoot Hibana's pellets from an angle, they'll sort of just like scoot around the environment to get to where you were aiming. Sometimes it doesn't work just right, sometimes it does, but a lot of the time it just is aimed and it's a smart device.
Yeah, talk a little about how hard it is to implement in the game. So yeah, I mean, just really briefly, anyone who's familiar with Hibana knows that she's been bugged for a really long time and the launcher doesn't work properly. And that's because the launcher, like part of the reason that it's super science fiction is it shoots 6 pellets at one time that advance in a regular pattern and always land in a perfect rectangle. No matter how far away you shoot them. Yeah, no matter how close or far you shoot them, they land in the same size rectangle or what angle you shoot them from or whatever. And under the hood in the game code, it's super complicated because at the same time, they're treated as 6 individual objects and 1 singular object. And you have 3 shots of this, for the, yeah. So, and all of those, they need to interact with each other as well to make sure that you can actually walk through the holes that you open up in the wall. And all of these pellets are interacting with each other and the actual Hibana launcher and all sorts of other things in ways that are just really, really difficult to do. And this operator is actually one of the most technically complicated in the game, which is really funny because you have, micro EMPs and cloaking drones and all this like stuff that if we were to actually implement it would be really difficult. But this operator is in the actual video game world one of the most complicated, and I think that's pretty interesting.
Thermite, but really small holes.
Thermite is another operator. Replaces a really large breaching charge that destroys metal. They're the only 2 operators that can. But his thing works is he has to walk up and physically place it.
Yeah, instead of just launching it on a cool ass gun.
Yeah. So moving on. So one of the operators they added in the latest patch has this giant drone that hangs over the map, and once in a while it lets off this ridiculous pulse that detects any operator movement. Yes.
100% decorated Crowley. Who would have known?
He's also great. So this is kind of weird because it almost works like echolocation, and people have made this helmet, which is based off a bat, where it emits ultrasonic sound, which is just sound above the human threshold for hearing. And when it bounces off of things, it returns to these, which are modeled off of a bat's ear. And basically, you can put it on, put a black mold over your eyes, hook it up to your brain, and then people have detected movements of dinner plates up to 20 centimeters, which is about the size of a dollar bill, so about that much. Humans have done this. They've worn that and done it. And it actually works out that people who are born blind are better at this. So the drone could theoretically be a just really big version of that.
I mean, especially with like all that space with you, right?
And it's what we call a passive sensor, which only detects movement. And how that works is it measures the change in the wavelength based off movement, because when you're moving, sound bounces back and it's slightly shifted.
So if you stand still, I will see you.
Just stand still. That's the argument people have used against him being nerd. So radio waves work the best because they have a really high wavelength, so they can penetrate more things. Maybe not concrete, but definitely that wall.
Why is it called Lion without cats?
Okay, so this goes back to Lion's bio. So Lion was assigned to a lot of quarantine areas and things like that, where he had to keep the crowd calm and orderly. And there was one time where, I don't remember which mission it was, but he ended up having to jump up onto a table and yell really loud for everybody to shut up and to stop being idiots. To the point where the locals started calling him a lion. And the fact that his roar quelled the entire room.
I've heard a suggestion that his name and Echo's name should be switched.
Yeah,
which is more applicable.
Yeah, it makes sense. This is a really cool drone. I love it, but it's also kind of.
So also in games, this drone is huge. It hovers over the map. You can see it from everywhere. And also, if you notice on the drone, it has these, which I think are supposed to be analogous to these.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. You don't have technical details on the drone.
Also, it looks like he's riding a scooter.
So yeah, and again, this is exactly like all the other operators. It's technology that kind of sort of exists in our world today, but it's just taken one or two steps further and really implemented in ways that are more fun from a gameplay perspective and just really cool objectively.
And from a gameplay standpoint, his drone can be destroyed. It's the only drone that can't.
I think it's got like this.
It has like a really big helicopter built right down up here. And the model doesn't show it because they assume we wouldn't be looking at it this close. So if you look up, there's a small animation of a rotor spinning, and I always shoot it at the start of a round because I'm not used to it being there, and I'm like aliens.
So that's science fiction because the whole thing would just spin.
So is it almost a gateway thing where
Well, I mean, if you're running outside as a defender, you've got other problems besides looking up, such as the attackers that now know where you are and want you dead.
So the other interesting thing about this drone is it gives you a 3-second warning before it goes off. And then when it goes off, and if it's a really loud sound, it kind of shakes your screen a bit. Which I think is supposed to represent the intensity of the waves.
Yeah, that's why you play red light, green light.
that's a line or
Yeah. So moving on, Vigil is this really cool operator who you will
not see.
The unrevealed.
You never saw me coming. Don't feel so bad. Nobody ever sees me. I'm in everyone's blind spot.
Well, interesting. So Vigil has this thing on his back where he can activate it. Here it is up close, and then drones cannot see him, or cameras cannot see him. You, as a person, can still look and see him, but your drones can't. And this is what's called diminished reality. Oh, I'm sorry, that shouldn't say AR. That should or VR. That should say AR. So diminished reality is augmented reality is you add things to what you see. Like you wear glasses, you add something. Diminished reality is removing things, and this has been done with very small objects. Like the example I saw was it took a scene of a park and highlighted a trash can and completely removed it when the camera panned around.
Is that live?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not live. No, you recorded.
Well, there are two kinds. There's observational and in-painting. In-painting is live, and it's really computationally intense and not as effective. So in-painting is what he has. Observational is you record it and then remove it. How it works though is that you need a specialized camera and specialized equipment. You can't broadcast something like Vigil that'll keep you removed from cameras.
but it is very similar to diminished reality, if not exactly what it is. And in fact, it might be what diminished reality looks like well in the future. Diminished reality is also useful for games like AR, where you can remove things from a crowded room to add to your experience and immerse you more. Or the example I read in an article was, if you're an architect and you want to look and see where you're going to place a building, you can place a building over the empty lot with augmented reality, but if the dimensions aren't quite right, you'll still see some things in the lot, like maybe a lamppost or a car. So you can use diminished reality to remove that. And that would probably be observational, or happen after. In painting, probably it's more use for video games or warfare.
Yeah. His ability is actually really annoying to play against in game if you're very used to being able to just drone out a room and check your corners to make sure that he's not hiding there. You'll know that he's nearby because the game will give you an indicator that your image is being messed with. But you won't have an exact position like you would with other operators. So he's actually quite terrifying, and don't mess with him because he has, like, I think the strongest shotgun in the game. The boss G.
It's only a shotgun by technicality. So yeah, so I mean, one of the things about this is that, in the diminished reality that we have today, you basically, you have the camera and then you select the sort of object, either before or afterhand, depending on what version you're using. So theoretically, the EE1D could be like, the cameras would try to detect EE1D is lines. Oh yeah, it's ERC7. Yeah. Theoretically, what it could do is the cameras could be set up to detect, the shape of this device, similar to a QR code, and then it would have stored in the approximate dimensions of Vigil, and it would remove them. But the thing is that software would need to be pre-installed on all of the cameras, which I mean, similar to the heartbeat sensor thing. It's like, why would you do that? Why are you doing that to yourself?
I can also kind of see the fact that he has so many antennas. He could be just attempting to scrum the signal sent back to the attackers, which erases the image. That's like one other way to do it. Because like you already kind of
his operator gadget talks about diminished reality.
Yeah.
Could you say that it's probably a good thing that they use and also, like, what actually is his shotgun?
So it has 2 shots and can one-shot some operators. Yeah, it shoots a slug as opposed to a buckshot. So it shoots basically a big bullet, but it's a over-under double-barrel shotgun. So we have 2 shots where you have to reload. It's not actually that useful because it only has 2 shots.
Yeah. Also, this reminds me of, does anybody here watch Altered Carbon?
No spoilers.
Okay, there's just one character that can do that. That's all I'm gonna say. He's called, I think, the Ghost Runner or something like that for most of the show because they don't know his real name. And it's actually very scary because, everybody has computers on their eyes to be able to record everything they do all day. And this guy will just like disappear from people's vision or, their computers when they play back their memories.
Cool. I think that's it for operators. Does anyone have any operators they want to talk about before we move on to talk about the story modes a little?
All right, cool.
Do you want this?
Yeah. All right, so I know I hit the button when I grabbed it. So
Rainbow Six Siege does actually have a story mode to it. It's not nearly as heavy as any of the other Rainbow games, but this one is based off of, at the base release game, there were, when you start up as a sort of tutorial map, rather a series of tutorials, there are things called situations, which a lot of them are based off of like real life sort of things where they had to send in special counter-terrorist units to do specific things. But in the story of Rainbow Six Siege, you're fighting against a terrorist group known as the White Masks that are... Because they wear white masks.
Because they wear white masks. And so the first couple situations are specifically training things, and then the other in a long series of single-player ones, you are fighting small terrorist groups just by yourself. But after you complete all the situations, a 11th situation is unlocked, called Article 12. And Article 5, and basically what it is that the White Masks have come together for their ultimate assault, where they do a chemical attack on Bartlett University, and you and your team, try not to physically recoil. Bartlett is an awful map, and it's the only multiplayer situation where you and your selected team of Rainbow go in and defeat the White Masks and defuse the bombs. And that was the only story that existed for more than 2 years. As
Article 5 is named after or one of the articles in the NATO treaty that requires different countries to give each other troops a time before.
Yeah, so the whole thing about Team Rainbow is that it's called that because it is of the best from all over the world coming together and working together in a single unit, Rainbow Six.
Also, if you play Glass during this mission, that's kind of just cheating. Because like this entire mission, you play with like a heavy amount of smoke between you and the rest of the entire map.
And guns can just see through smoke.
Yeah, the turrets can see through smoke, Glass can see through smoke, and you're just gonna have a bad time if you're not Glass.
Yeah, and then so this is the only story that existed in the game for a long time. There are some fan theories about the multiplayer is actually a simulation between Team Rainbow Six as they go to keep up their skills. And that explains why it's Rainbow versus Rainbow, and this is supported very lightly in the Rainbow Six novel, where the main characters for like 3 pages do a virtual combat situation. It's further supported evidence that one of the things that happens is that one of the operators is like, I know I would have hit my target, but because it's just a stupid simulation, I actually missed. And I too have experienced that in game. I should have hit that guy, but because it's a stupid simulation, I missed. I'm not bad. The game is bad.
It's my teammates who are bad.
I trust my team.
So yeah, that's the only story that existed for a long time. I'll get to you guys in just a moment. I'm about to transition into recently. They added Operation Outbreak, which is in the town of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. There was a strange meteorite that crashed, and they're getting all sorts of strange reports of monsters. And what happens is Team Rainbow is called once again, rebanded, and sent to investigate. And what happens is there is some disease that came from outer space in a USSR satellite.
It's all the Russians.
It's all the Russians' fault. It always is. And this disease has spread across the town, and it is your job to rescue one of the only doctors that's left who's been taking extensive research notes because you need her expertise and her notes in order to begin to find a cure and stop the outbreak. There is a second mission where one of your operators goes down in the field, and it's your job to go in and rescue him. And then finally, the final assault on where the pod dropped in, where you have to infiltrate a very well guarded and defended home of one of the natives of Truth or Consequences. You find this pod has gotten itself like reinforced and reconstructed by these strange diseased sort of structure. You have to destroy them, and then the pod is ripped out by a helicopter and brought to a secure area for more research. And that is significantly more story than we had before.
Yeah, it's very well crafted, honestly. The fact that they look normal until you get within their view, where they transform into, pointy murderers who want to kill you and rip off your face.
Yeah. And this is a cool dichotomy, I think, between Article 5, which is very much light science fiction. The chemical weapon that they use doesn't exist in the real world, and obviously all the operators and gadgets that you can use don't exist. But it is still feasible that a terrorist organization could get together and do some sort of chemical attack somewhere. But Operation Outbreak is very, very much science fiction, right? Very Andromeda strain, sort of Michael Crichton. Some alien disease comes in, infects a town. What's going on? Let's figure it out. But this one involves more shooting than Andromeda strain.
Especially because they added 2 new operators to help, who were very effective in the game or in the story, and then were added to multiplayer. Lion, who we already talked about, and this operator Finka, whose ability is she injects her teammates with nanobots, and then they're better.
Can we just talk about a second because you got operators who have nanobots. You got operators who have really high tech problems. You got operators who can shout to see people, and then you've got a guy with a freaking hammer.
Screw the explosives.
I'm using the hammer.
But yeah, so these are our sources for all the things that we pulled up,
but that is our presentation on the light science fiction of Rainbow Six Siege. Thank you everybody for coming, and if you would like to talk about maybe some other operators that have some cool gadgets that you want to kind of discuss how they might be possible, or other examples of light science fiction that you thought of, where the science fiction isn't really as important, it really sets as a backdrop for some other cool stuff going on, or anything else you guys want to bring up. Floor's open to you. So we'll start here.
The lore?
Lord.
Oh,
Well, Tachanka is not science fiction.
Tachanka is holy. He goes beyond science fiction and into the divine. Glorious Lord Tachanka and his Soviet technology shall liberate us all from. Yes?
Tachanka is fact.
Tachanka is fact.
So those who are aware, his ability is he has a mounted LMG that he puts and he holds an angle and has a ballistic shield that's supposed to protect him from headshots, but it doesn't always work. And in this game, that's absolutely useless because you know where he is and you can easily play around that. But he screams a lot, so people like him.
He screams, he's buff, he's a Russian. So everyone's like, Tachanka's great, Tachanka sucks.
Ubisoft has actually said they won't buff him because of his meme status.
Yes, no, I spoke to the creative director of Rainbow Six Siege, and he said that if we changed Tachanka, he would no longer be Tachanka. So we're going to leave him where he is.
Not bad game. It's not bad. The net code. And I don't know most of the operators, so like who's Mira and
Yeah, oh, so Mira's my name. Okay, calm down. I like this operator, it's fun. So what she has is that she has what's called a black mirror. And what it is she plants it on a wall and it destroys the wall immediately behind it, and it is a one-way mirror. So you can see through it, a bulletproof one-way mirror. So you can see through it, but the enemy cannot see you through it. So it's really useful for being safe and gathering information about the enemy team, and they are denied that exact same information that you have. And it's also very powerful because if you plant it next to a soft wall that you can shoot through, you can very quickly peek around the corner, shoot someone through the wall, and then go back to safety. So she's really good at denying very long angles, and she's a very dangerous operator that you have to work around.
I mean, Valkyrie throws cameras, so she just has additional cameras because the two sides are very different. So the defenders have cameras they can use; they can put up barricades and reinforce walls. The attackers can repel, and they have drones they can use to look. But Valkyrie's ability, she can throw 3 cameras where the attackers won't know where they are, so you can look through them and get more information.
Yeah, and then the 2 operators that use chemical weapons are Legion and Smoke.
And Tappy Tap.
Oh, yes, you do call that fireballs like a 68 volts instead. So how Smoke's thing works is he literally just has gas grenades that he throws off to wherever the attackers are coming in from, and that usually manages to, poison them and kill them, and poisonous warfare or chemical warfare is banned by the Geneva Convention, and this operator should probably be arrested and put in jail somewhere where he can't hurt anybody, but he's still part of Rainbow and is still on active duty. The second one is Legion, who for some reason wears cargo shorts everywhere. Tactical shorts. And we believe that instead of him actually having a machine that builds his poisons,
he gains more.
He gains more poisonous darts, just poisonous mines to put down on the floor as the round goes on. But we don't think that he's actually generating them from some sort of machine on his person. He's actually just looking around in his pocket for the next one to throw. Going
oh, there it is. 30 seconds. Goes, aha! But yeah, so he throws this little device on the ground, and it's got a needle in it, and when attacker steps on it, it ejects them with a poison that they have to pull out, otherwise they take damage over time, and they can't do certain. They can't. I think that's
no, they can't play the fusion.
Yeah, they can't play. Oh, it's diffuser. Yeah.
With John, and then you.
So this is a 2-part question for Karen.
Okay.
First part, how many hours my license did you say you have a Mira?
In Mira, I think I have
you have 23.
I have more than that. No, that's
oh no, I was thinking Dante.
I have between 50 and 100 hours of Mira.
And the other part is, how does it feel to know that for all of those hours, you put your badge on the wrong wall? You should have put it on that other wall over there.
No. I know the pro strats. My friend is a collegiate pro league player, and he tells me where to put my mirrors.
And I am a pro league caster. Therefore, he's placing them right.
Yeah, he affirms that I do them right.
I can confirm that. What's your name? Jimmy. Sorry, I've never learned your name. I'm sorry. Hi, Jimmy. What's your question? Oh yes, Legion's Mind somehow take Yokai's power and just cloak themselves onto the floor, where unless you're like crouched down onto the ground, just like looking like this, you will not see them, and you will most likely run into them.
Yeah, it's probably a similar technology to Yokai, where, because again, they don't move, they're very stationary, so it probably takes an image of the area around it and then projects that on the outside of the glass.
Even though they're, yes, lucky, again, it destroys them within the enemy.
They have like a release system that's electronic. Yeah.
It makes you happy. It makes you happy.
Oh, quick note. Think of the operator we were talking about before. Like, you know how she injects you with nanobots? Those nanobots like make you have like more adrenaline in your system and make your heart beat faster. So what happens when your heart beats faster? Usually you want to take in more oxygen, right? Just to keep up with that rate. If you're boosted by Finka while you walk into smoke's gas grenades, you will die much faster.
And furthermore, pulse with the heartbeat sensor can detect you from further away.
Yeah. Michael Cooper.
I appreciate how all these games and mechanics interconnect with each other in interesting ways. Like the adrenaline rush causes you to die faster if you are in a smoke. I was wondering, can a sledgehammer break mirror's mirror?
No, it cannot. Actually, on release, she was bugged slightly, where there's a release system on the mirror where if you melee a small canister, the glass drops down and you can just shoot through the hole. And the same thing, attackers can also destroy that canister. It was bugged at the very beginning of the game where you could walk forward, and if you went right up against the mirror, you could melee it from the outside and get a free view in. And it was really bad and was really awful for defenders. And it was just not fun or like balanced because it was broken. So I doubt that they'd introduce that sort of thing to it.
There's like he did point out something really cool about the game, which is how games interact with each other. If you actually use Mute's jammer and put it down on the floor, and you stand next to it, and you're moving around next to it while Lion does its call, he will not be able to see you because Mute apparently has figured out how to stop echolocation with just a Wi-Fi router. And
it's Comcast. It's Comcast. Comcast stops anything. Yeah, because it's not a camera, it's echolocation. Yeah, there is no gadget in this game that operates entirely independently. They are all affected in some way or another by another operator, either by a synergy or by a counter synergy. Like for example, even the crossbow bolt. One of the bolts you can load is a smoke dart that then Glaz, a different operator, can see through, but no one else can. So if you have a Capitao and a Glaz, and you can smoke off an area that's really far away with the crossbow, and then look through it with your thermal scope. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool synergy and counter synergy that you can do with any operator or any collection or combination of them.
You know what my favorite strategy nowadays is for planting a site? Is how every other operator can't see through Gene's Candela flash grenades?
So she just has a super flash grenade and it wrote she has some glasses that would not be able to.
So she tosses them in. You walk in with the diffuser. You can't see anything, and then you start typing on it.
You don't need to see anything to hold that F button. So yeah, because it's a non-lethal gadget, it's like you can throw it against your own friend, and as long as you're covering them, it doesn't matter if they get hit. Yeah. So it's an interesting, unique application of that gadget, because you wouldn't think I don't want to throw this, my friend's in the room, but there are certain situations which is actually a good idea.
Like in universe, that doesn't make much sense because the operators are very much typing down some very complicated program to try and.
Can you type with your eyes closed?
No.
You can't type with your eyes closed? No, I can type with my eyes closed. You really can't type with your eyes closed?
No.
Can you type with your eyes closed? Okay, who here can type with their eyes closed? I see a lot of CS people with their hands raised. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. All operators are trained to type with their eyes closed.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they have like a poison.
Yeah.
It's just like a needle that
Shoots up and starts injecting
why
poison.
would you have figured out to where?
Because game balance. Well, actually, interestingly enough, so when we were doing a little bit of research for like Frost's bear trap to see if they ever use bear traps in warfare, and we saw like Vietnam and like Viet Cong like guerrilla warfare tactics. What they would do is sometimes they would take just a bullet and put like a nail underneath it and bury it in the ground, so that when you stepped on it, it would hit the firing pin and just shoot the bullet up into a soldier's foot. And soldiers with steel bottom boots were affected more because the steel was shattered and all the fragments went into their foot as opposed to just the bullet. So, like, perhaps that's why they don't wear the steel plated boots.
We don't know all the details on all the gadgets.
Yes, fine. That's fine. What's in Afghanistan? Redacted.
Yeah.
Operator, I want to like talk about the I don't know a whole lot about it because I don't have any of the DLC. But Jackal.
Oh, Jackal's headset that allows you to just like look at a footprint and just turn into Sherlock Holmes for like 10 seconds.
So I mean, like we do have like blacklight technologies.
You can scan the ground, you can see footprint, you can scan a footprint, and then there's some algorithm that traces the footprints out and tells you exactly where the enemy operator is.
Which is kind of weird.
And it does that every 5 times.
So, I mean, basically, like, the closest thing that I can think of to that is, it kind of almost looks like blacklight technology where the footprints are, like, illuminated, and it does fade over time even. So, I guess it sort of falls under the same thing where, for Pulse to work, all the operators need to have a Bluetooth heartbeat sensor, and, for Vigil to work, they need to have installed this software on all their drones. So, for Jackal to work, all of the operators need to have put the special invisible paint on the bottom of their shoes so we can see it with blacklight goggles.
So when it's sooner, I think it's
Red is about to disappear. Green is placed recently.
Yeah, I think.
Aren't you a Jackal?
No, that's great.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. The best thing about that is like finding a footprint and then it locates to like right behind you and you're like, oh. Yeah.
We don't say like it always works because they're all using the same tag, like asymmetric. And what are your veins or like your things out here?
I'm wearing the color of my mane. I'm Bandit and Blackbeard. Oh, actually no, not Blackbeard anymore. Capital.
Cool. I play Rook, who's the defender. What he does is he puts down armor that all his team can wear. And he also thank you.
Rook is.
Rook also has an income that all the attackers have income, which gives you 2.5 times vision. Yeah. But only 3 defenders do. So it's Rook, who can heal people.
Because they're slow.
And then on offense, I play Sledge and Thunder.
Yeah. So on defense, I'll play either Mira or Valkyrie because I like information. So I like to play operators that give me a little bit of a leg up on the enemy, just my knowledge, because I am a very talkative, communicative person, and I like to relay that information to my team. And on attack, I usually tend to fill in the gaps. I'm most comfortable with Thermite and Hibana. I'll play a lot. Sometimes if one of those roles are taken, or if we don't need a hard breacher for the site, I'll maybe take like No Heidi or another support information operator.
Those are like actual reasons to play your characters. Me, I just like being a blind man without depth perception. Yeah, and also a speedy electric boy that just like apparently can hook up a battery to anything and immediately electrify it, despite that's not how circuits work.
Light science fiction. Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? Yeah.
So, light science fiction is where technology isn't as important to the story. It's ancillary to the able to plot.
Exactly.
Captain America Civil War, would you say that falls on light science fiction or further stuff? Because the whole algorithm the Hyder's been developing the whole time.
Wait, Civil War?
Civil War.
Don't you
No,
mean
sorry.
Winter Soldier? There we go.
You mix up all the
Yeah. So Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier, like, it does take sort of back to the fact that Hydra is taking over Shield.
Yeah.
So it's used more as of like an end goal for Hydra, as opposed to like the main thing that Cap is trying to stop. Cap is actually just trying to stop Hydra overall. So you could view it that way.
Yeah, and as far as Marvel superheroes go, Captain America and Black Widow are totally on the lighter science fiction side. It's like this guy's stronger and has a bulletproof shield, which we've already talked about.
We have drugs.
We have drugs.
Steroids are real.
As Benjamin will tell you. Drugs.
I said light herbs.
I mean, you could,
but the most importantly to that point actually is that is pretty central to the plot of Captain America: The First Avenger, but it really is more of a backdrop in Winter Soldier. It's less important of how Captain America got his powers, and it's more about a little bit about his integration into society. It's really the main series of the plot is how SHIELD has been infiltrated by Hydra.
There are definitely parts of it that are like science fiction, but in general, because of all the superhero stuff, I'd say there's more on the side of the part of science fiction.
You could make an argument for the first half of Iron Man 1, where he just like,
oh yeah, definitely,
builds, an Iron Man suit out of in a cave, out of scraps, a box of scraps.
We actually talked about that in the second half of science fiction.
Yeah, because he, adds sort of like small VTOL engines to his feet and flies around and fixes the freezing problem.
Yeah, but I think that Winter Soldier is definitely one of the lightest science fiction of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You're probably right.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Wait, not that the same?
That's just fantasy.
That's just fantasy.
So it's not.
That's just fantasy. Go on Wednesdays to Fantasy Club to discuss that.
We'll not sit here and argue about what is and what isn't science fiction because that happens too much.
Yeah,
but I will argue about what is and isn't like science.
Yeah, good examples. All right.
Also, in Civil War, you can see a shock breeze, but the DS9 is fucking.
Oh yeah.
Because when the hammer down, it says a shock.
Yeah. Screw the explosives. I'm using a hammer. Screw the hammer. I'm using a shotgun.
Yes.
No, I went to headcanon that actually Bandit and Jaeger who just go, I saw Boss do this. Hang on, give it a shotgun.
He's like, my friend Sledge did this. You are not as strong as Sledge. I have shotgun.
Oh, also the GSG9 for some reason wear jeans to
Oh, yeah.
operations.
They wear jeans and Adidas sneakers. It's hilarious.
All the different seats in this game have a very different aesthetic. So you have to just look at and recognize which counterterrorism part of it and then who they are.
Yeah, each of them has not necessarily a distinct silhouette, but a very distinct like armor type, color. Like I guess it's slightly a silhouette. It's not quite as powerful as the ones in like TF2 or whatnot. But you can definitely just glance. Yeah. You can see an operator for just a moment as they run by a window, and you can identify them.
Here, Buck and Frost come from the same unit, but Buck is on offense, Frost is on defense. You can see the similarities with this neck thing, a lighter color. Yeah, exactly. Sledge's SAS, all the SAS operators have gas masks.
Oh, I just remembered? So Valkyrie's legs are the same legs as Blackbeard. They're modeled the same because they were copy pasted to each other because they wanted to just, I guess, save some time.
Yes, well, they'll save room more specifically.
Yeah, save some room. If you like Cameron, like Valkyrie, you have to ask yourself, are you really looking at Valkyrie's butt or at Blackbeard's butt?
Doesn't matter. It's still a nice butt.
He doesn't judge.
Oh, one more interesting thing about the game that I just found out on our Rainbow Six subreddit AM yesterday is that in Article 5, the two operators they added for Operation Chimera or Outbreak just wear their default uniforms instead of wearing like a gas mask suit like all the other operators do.
Oh, that is neat. Yeah. Right. Cool. Anything else anyone wants to say?
Or does anyone want to go behind cameras?
Oh, well, first, if everyone's done, does anyone have anything else to say? Anything else you want to add to this presentation? We'd love your input. All right. Yes. Always fuse the hostage. Any beginning tips? If you want to play the game, play fuse, go to the objective room, plant the cluster charge. Your team will love you every time. I promise.
Well, first turn off hostage.
But yeah, all right. Thank you everybody for coming to our mission. I'm going to hand it over to John for some quick closing announcements before you guys get out of here. I bestow upon you the ceremonial laser.
Don't know why, but thanks. So before you guys head out, buy soda, buy your membership, buy your tickets, posters, pick up posters there. We're just postering Infinity War this week. And also, right after the mission, we're going to be pieing the bridge crew. Everyone except for Claire is guaranteed to be pied. So if you want to pie us, then come on down. We will be right out in front of the SAU, right?
Follow us down, we'll get us right in. Right now.
I haven't seen Ron, I just got an email saying that it's a long story.
Bye, internet.